Lynn Couture is a retired Worcester teacher and librarian. She's here tonight to recount a very unique Christmas tree fire way back in 1970. It was a memorable event for her and others. Lynn, welcome to the stage.
In 1970, I was a young wife and mother to my 2-year-old son and my 4-month-old daughter. We lived in a tenement on the 3rd floor at the top of Vernon Hill. It was December, and we were looking forward to the Christmas holiday ahead. So my husband and I, at that time, were still quite immature, and we decided, in spite of the fact that we were struggling financially, we decided to put those worries aside and go out and do some Christmas shopping. So we went out to the stores and we bought gifts. And then we went and bought a real Christmas tree. Did we buy an average size tree? Oh no. We had to get one that just about touched the ceiling of the apartment that we lived in. And we bought more decorations for the tree. And when we got home, we took the tree out and put it in the stand right away. That was the first thing we did when we got back in. And the tree was a little wobbly and unsteady in the stand, which was a concern to me with a 2-year-old toddler running around the house. So we got twine and we wrapped it around the trunk of the tree and tacked it to the window casing that the tree was in front of. And that took care of the problem and everything was fine. So I decorated the tree, and then the next day or two I wrapped the gifts and I put them under the tree. So we waited for Christmas Day to come, and on Christmas morning my husband and I watched in delight as our 2-year-old opened up his presents and sat in his little plastic foot-propelled car looking like one of the Flintstones with his feet paddling out from underneath. And so we had a happy Christmas. We were still basking in the warmth of the holiday 3 nights after Christmas. And I was putting my children to bed. It was about 7:30 at night. My husband was in another room. And at some point he called up and he said, "Are you making popcorn?" I said, "No." And so a few seconds later he yelled, "The house is on fire." So I looked out of the doorway to the children's room and I could see straight ahead that the tree was almost entirely engulfed in flames from about 2 feet up all the way up to the ceiling already. So I grabbed my daughter and put a blanket around her. And my husband did the same with our son. And we got ready to leave the apartment. But we couldn't go out the way we had always entered and exited our apartment, which would be the front staircase. But the whole front room was kind of getting encompassed with flames then. So we had to use the back staircase, which we had never ever used. And it was pitch black in that stairwell. So we were at the back door, just ready to leave. And I turned to look back once more, and I saw the tree fall across the room into the couch. The twine had burned. I closed the door behind me. We made our way down the stairs as quickly and as safely as we could, and let the people on the 2nd floor know that there was a fire in the house, and let the people on the 1st floor know that there was a fire in the building as well. So we came out on the side of the house. We made our way to the front sidewalk, and once we were on the front sidewalk, I looked up, and I could see the flames coming out of the front porch and starting to eat their way through the roof of the building. The fire department responded pretty quickly. There was a fire station on Providence Street, which was right around the corner from where we lived. However, when they got there was a hydrant very close to the front of our building, but it was frozen solid. So they had to attach hose to a hydrant on Providence Street and then run the hose and start to fight the fire from there. So I watched while they were at working. And while I watched, I wondered, did we pay our insurance? Fortunately, we had. So we were not able to go back into the house that night. I never went back into that house from that moment on. But it was pretty cold while we stood out on the sidewalk, and a neighbor that lived in a building right next to us on the first floor called out, "Come in and stay warm with the babies." So I went into her house, and I was able to use her telephone and call our families to tell them what was happening. I had only met this neighbor once before. One day when I was out and I was returning to my apartment with my son, it was a hot summer day, and she had called out and said, "Come on in for some ice cream." So I did, and we chatted for a while. But I didn't get a chance to get to know her because I was 8 months pregnant at that point, expecting my daughter. And it was just too difficult for me to climb 3 flights of stairs in the condition that I was in with a 2-year-old on my hip. So I hardly ever went out unless my husband was with me. So I didn't get a chance to know this neighbor, but I was so thankful and grateful to her to invite me into her house. The next thing we did was go to my parents' house. And my parents were incredible. They welcomed us, they opened up their doors and they welcomed us in, and with all the love and support and help that they had. I was one of 14 children, 2 from the top. So at the point that we had the fire, one of my brothers was out of the house and I was out of the house, but they still had 12 children at home. So now here I'm coming with there's 4 of us, and my parents welcomed us in. And I just think that that's amazing when I think of it now. They were incredible. So we spent about a month at my mother and father's house, and during that time, my mom and dad spent countless hours washing down blackened, sooty possessions that we were able to recover from the fire. And their house smelled smoky too until all these things got washed down. After about a month, I figured, well, let's not press our luck and maybe it's time to move on. So we went and stayed with my husband's parents for about a month. And I'm sure my parents were glad to see us go. So my in-laws were just as supportive and loving and helpful as my family was. So we stayed with them for about a month, and then we found another apartment, and we settled into another apartment after that month. And our lives went on, but after a few years after the fire, our marriage did not. So my husband and I had an amicable divorce, and we had an amicable relationship after that, which was helpful for our kids. Sometime later, I met another person who would become my second husband, and we married in 1982. So for the next 12 to 15 years, our lives were running pretty smoothly. We had our ups and downs like everybody does, and we worked things out, and our lives were running smoothly. But after about 15 years, I started to feel like something was wrong. Something was amiss, and I felt like it was eroding our marriage, but I could not identify what it was. So then in 2006, my husband got diagnosed with frontotemporal dementia, and that explains these questions that were in my head about what was wrong. So it was very heartbreaking watching the progress of this disease taking my husband away bit by bit. And after he got diagnosed, he stayed in the home with me for about 8 years after his diagnosis. And then his care was becoming more complicated and more difficult for me to do basically by myself. I was getting some help from people here and there, but the crux of the problem was like, it was like my trying to take care of him, and it was getting difficult. So in 2013, he went into a nursing home. The nursing home that he went into happened to be right across the street from where I had my Christmas tree fire. And that apartment building that I had the fire in had long since been torn down, and the area there was being used, they had paved it, and it was being used as a parking area for the staff and the visitors of the nursing home. So when my husband was in the nursing home, I went to see him every day. And I usually stayed with him for a significant amount of the day. And he just needed a lot of comfort. And so I was there, the floor that he was on the 4th floor of that facility. And the residents that were on that floor all had one type of or degree of dementia or another. And I really got to know a lot of the family members, especially those that were frequent visitors. One of the wives, her name was Kathy. Kathy's husband was there and he had Alzheimer's. And Kathy was an unbelievable advocate for her husband. But Kathy didn't stop there. She helped all of us. Kathy started a support group at that meeting, and so we would meet at that facility. We would meet like once a week. We would go help our loved ones, help feed them their supper, and then we would go get them settled in for the night and go downstairs and have a meeting downstairs in the facility. And it was like really wonderful because I felt like we were like survivors on a life raft or something. And these meetings just cut the loneliness. And we did our best to hold each other up. And even once in a while, we were even able to share a laugh or two in the middle of all this misery that was around us. And so that was good. It got to be, my husband had been in the nursing home for about 4 months, and Christmas was coming up. And I knew that I'd be spending Christmas Day at the nursing home with my husband. And so Christmas was coming up, and I was in the dining room with my husband one night, sometime in December, and we were waiting for the supper trays to be brought up from the kitchen. And Kathy was there too with her husband. And Kathy asked one of the staff people, her name was Courtney, Kathy asked Courtney about decorations that she had donated to the facility the year before. And Kathy was wondering if Courtney knew where they were. Courtney said, well, they might be in the closet here. So the two of them started rummaging around in the closet, and Kathy's decorations were in there. And they hauled them out. And they really like just lightened up the room because they started to decorate the dining room. And they took things out and they were putting things up on the wall and they were putting things out on the table. And Kathy was shaping up a little tabletop tree that she had. So while they were busy doing that, I started to tell the story about my Christmas tree fire. So when I finished my story, Kathy said, oh, the same thing happened to my neighbor years ago. And Kathy pointed at the window and she said, I lived right there. I was completely stunned. I said, Kathy, that was me. You invited me into your apartment with my babies. It was amazing. The fact that I saw Kathy almost every day for those 4 months, and I didn't realize who she was, and she didn't realize who I was, and here we are, connecting 43 years later. It was a moment of magic. It really was. And I was so thankful and grateful for this time that I had, and I told Kathy that we had become good friends after that. And I only hope that I can be as good a friend to Kathy as she was to me. Twice in my life, Kathy was there to help me out at a time of duress. And I can't thank her enough for that. And I believe that people are in our life for a reason. And when somebody enters your life like that, in a positive way, as a positive force, then it is indeed a gift and a blessing. Thank you.